Imagine walking through life with a sense of emotional power so profound that no one's words or actions can disturb your peace. Chaos could swirl around you, and yet you remain grounded, calm, and unshakable. This isn't a fantasy or a trait reserved for the few. It's a skill that anyone can cultivate with practice. Imagine mastering your emotions so deeply that you control them instead of being controlled by them. This mastery isn't about suppressing or ignoring your feelings, but about commanding them with wisdom and grace. It's about creating an internal world where peace is the default setting, no matter what happens externally. The first step on this journey is learning the power of emotional detachment. To many, detachment sounds cold, as though it means cutting off your feelings, but in reality, it's the opposite. Detachment means understanding that while you may feel emotions like anger, frustration, or hurt, you are not defined by them. Instead of letting emotions pull you into an automatic reaction, you observe them with curiosity and patience. Imagine an argument where someone hurls hurtful words at you. The natural response might be to snap back, defend yourself, or let anger rise within you. But emotional detachment invites you to pause, breathe, and observe the emotion as if you were watching it pass by, like clouds drifting across the sky. By creating this space between yourself and the emotion, you break the chain of reaction. You acknowledge the anger without becoming consumed by it, and in doing so, you free yourself from its grip. Anger, frustration, and disappointment lose their power when you recognize them for what they are: temporary visitors in the mind. They do not define you, nor do they control you unless you allow them to. This is the beauty of detachment. You're not suppressing the emotion, you're simply choosing not to let it dictate your actions. Detachment also allows you to ask important questions when emotions arise. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause and reflect. What am I feeling right now? Why is this affecting me so deeply? What can I learn from this experience? These questions give you insight into your triggers and help you develop greater self-awareness. Over time, you'll notice that situations that once provoked strong reactions now barely affect you. You'll have trained yourself to remain calm and composed no matter what life throws your way. Reprogramming your mind is the next essential step in this journey. Our thoughts shape our reality, and too often we allow them to spiral into negativity. When something triggers us, we might find ourselves asking questions like, "Why would they say that to me?" or "What did I do to deserve this?" These questions are natural, but they can fuel anger and self-pity if left unchecked. To break this cycle, you must shift your perspective. Buddhism offers a powerful tool for this called the what-if mindset. Instead of reacting with frustration or defensiveness, ask yourself, what if this situation is teaching me a lesson? Or what if this person's behavior has nothing to do with me and everything to do with what they're going through? These simple shifts in perspective can diffuse the intensity of anger and open the door to understanding and empathy. Imagine being criticized by someone at work. Instead of thinking, "How dare they?" you might think, "What if this is an opportunity to practice patience or improve my communication skills?" By reframing the situation, you take control of your emotional response. You're no longer reacting out of anger. You're responding with intention and grace. The what-if mindset also fosters curiosity, which is a powerful antidote to emotional reactivity. Instead of seeing conflicts as threats, you start seeing them as opportunities for growth. Each interaction becomes a chance to learn more about yourself, your triggers, and your ability to navigate challenging situations with wisdom. The more you practice this mindset, the more you'll find yourself approaching life's difficulties with calm curiosity rather than fear or frustration. One of the most profound realizations you'll encounter on this journey is the concept of emotional sovereignty, the idea that you are the ruler of your emotional world. No one can make you feel anything unless you give them permission to do so. People can say hurtful things, circumstances can be challenging, but ultimately, how you feel is within your control. When you give others the power to dictate your emotional state, you're essentially handing over the keys to your peace. But when you claim emotional sovereignty, you take back that control. This concept is freeing because it shifts the responsibility from external events to your internal response. It's not about blaming yourself for feeling negative emotions. It's about recognizing that you have the power to choose how long you dwell in them. If someone insults you, you don't have to take it personally. You can acknowledge the sting of their words without letting it linger. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause, remind yourself that their words are a reflection of their own state of mind, and choose how you want to respond. Practicing emotional sovereignty involves daily reminders. When you feel triggered, take a moment to tell yourself, I am in control of my emotions. No one else can dictate how I feel unless I allow them to. Over time, this practice rewires your brain, making it easier to maintain calm in situations that once rattled you. You'll become the calm in the storm, the person who remains centered even when chaos unfolds around them. This calm isn't passive, it's powerful. It's the kind of composure that comes from knowing that you control your inner world and nothing external can take that away. Embracing emotional sovereignty also means accepting responsibility for your feelings. It's easy to blame others for our emotional reactions, but true empowerment comes from recognizing that our emotions are ours to manage. When you take ownership of your feelings, you stop waiting for others to change or apologize. You take action to create the peace you seek within yourself. Transforming anger into a higher form of energy is another essential practice on this journey. Anger is often seen as a destructive emotion, but it doesn't have to be. Buddhism teaches the concept of energy transmutation, which involves channeling the raw power of anger into something constructive. Instead of letting anger consume you or cause harm, you can redirect it into motivation, creativity, or problem-solving. When you feel anger rising, pause and ask yourself how you can use that energy productively. For example, if someone's behavior at work frustrates you, instead of venting or retaliating, you could channel that energy into completing a task with extra focus and determination. If a personal conflict leaves you feeling upset, you could use that energy to engage in physical exercise or creative expression, both of which help release emotional tension in a healthy way. This process doesn't involve ignoring or suppressing anger. It involves acknowledging it fully and then consciously choosing how to channel it. Anger, when transmuted, can become a powerful catalyst for change. It can motivate you to set boundaries, advocate for yourself, or make positive changes in your life. The key is to view anger not as a problem, but as a form of energy that you can direct in any way you choose. Through practice, you'll find that situations that once left you feeling angry or frustrated now inspire action and growth. Instead of being drained by anger, you'll be fueled by it, using its energy to propel you forward. This shift is transformative, allowing you to move through life with a sense of purpose and control that is unshakable. As you begin to master emotional sovereignty, you realize that controlling your reactions isn't about repressing what you feel, but about understanding those feelings on a deeper level. Anger, sadness, fear, these emotions are messengers. They arise to tell you something important about your internal state. Instead of pushing them away or letting them take over, you can learn to listen to them with curiosity and compassion. When you view your emotions as teachers, they lose their grip on you, and you gain the ability to respond with wisdom rather than impulsiveness. One of the most valuable tools in this process is mindfulness. By bringing awareness to your emotional experiences, you create a space between the trigger and your reaction. For example, when you feel anger bubbling up, instead of immediately reacting, you pause and observe the sensation. Where do you feel the tension? Is it in your chest, your jaw, or your stomach? What thoughts accompany the feeling? By simply observing the physical and mental aspects of the emotion, you shift from being consumed by it to understanding it. You're no longer in its grip. You're studying it from a place of calm detachment. Mindfulness also helps you recognize the patterns that drive your emotional responses. Perhaps you notice that criticism from a certain person triggers defensiveness, or that you feel anxious in specific environments. With this awareness, you can address the underlying issues, whether they're rooted in self-doubt, unresolved trauma, or unexamined beliefs. The more you understand the root cause of your emotional reactions, the easier it becomes to disarm them. Let's take the example of feeling hurt after being criticized. Instead of reacting defensively or internalizing the criticism, you could pause and ask yourself, why is this bothering me? Is it because I believe what they're saying? Or is it because I'm attaching my worth to their opinion? These questions allow you to explore the deeper meaning behind your emotional reaction and separate fact from perception. You might discover that the criticism triggered an old insecurity, or that you're placing too much value on external approval. Once you've identified the root cause, you can address it directly, freeing yourself from the emotional burden. Another powerful practice in emotional mastery is learning how to let go. Holding on to negative emotions like resentment, bitterness, or regret only weighs you down. They occupy mental and emotional space that could be used for growth, creativity, and peace. But letting go isn't always easy, especially when the pain feels justified. You might think, they wronged me, so why should I forgive them? But forgiveness isn't about condoning someone's behavior. It's about releasing yourself from the prison of negative emotions. Buddhism teaches that holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal. You're the one who gets burned. Letting go doesn't mean you forget or dismiss what happened. It means you choose to prioritize your peace over your pain. When you release the grip of anger or resentment, you free yourself from the emotional chains that keep you stuck in the past. Forgiveness is not a gift you give to the other person. It's a gift you give to yourself. To practice letting go, start by acknowledging the emotion without judgment. Say to yourself, I feel angry, and that's okay. Allow yourself to feel the emotion fully, but set an intention to release it. Visualize the emotion leaving your body, like a weight being lifted off your shoulders. You can also use affirmations such as, I release this anger because my peace is more important than holding on to this pain. With time and practice, you'll find that the emotions that once consumed you gradually lose their power. Letting go also applies to expectations. Much of the pain we experience comes from unmet expectations, expectations of how people should behave, how situations should unfold, or how life should treat us. When reality doesn't align with our expectations, we feel disappointment, frustration, or sadness. But what if you could release those expectations and accept life as it is, not as you think it should be? This is the essence of radical acceptance, a practice that allows you to find peace in any situation. Radical acceptance doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means acknowledging reality without resistance and focusing on what you can control. For example, if a relationship didn't turn out the way you hoped, instead of dwelling on what could have been, you accept what is and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I move forward in a way that serves my growth? This mindset shift transforms disappointment into a stepping stone for growth rather than a source of prolonged suffering. Imagine a situation where you've been wronged by someone you trusted. The initial reaction might be anger, betrayal, and a desire for justice or revenge. But holding on to these emotions only prolongs your suffering. Radical acceptance invites you to acknowledge the pain without judgment and then release the need for things to be different. You can't change what happened, but you can change how you respond. You choose to let go, not for the sake of the other person, but for the sake of your own peace. Letting go of expectations also applies to yourself. We often set unrealistic standards and then criticize ourselves when we fall short. But self-criticism doesn't lead to growth, it leads to shame and self-doubt. Radical acceptance means embracing your imperfections and recognizing that mistakes are part of the journey. When you let go of the need to be perfect, you create space for self-compassion and growth. Instead of saying, "I failed," you say, "I'm learning." Another essential practice in mastering your emotions is cultivating gratitude. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's lacking to what's abundant. It reminds you that even in difficult times, there are things to be thankful for. When you practice gratitude regularly, it rewires your brain to notice the positive aspects of life, making it easier to maintain a calm and optimistic outlook. Start by listing 3 things you're grateful for each day, no matter how small. It could be the warmth of the sun, the support of a friend, or the fact that you have the strength to face another day. Gratitude doesn't erase challenges, but it changes your perspective, allowing you to approach them with a sense of resilience and hope. When you focus on what you have rather than what you lack, you cultivate a sense of contentment that protects you from the emotional roller coaster of constantly seeking more. Gratitude also helps you navigate relationships with empathy and forgiveness. When you focus on the positive qualities of others, you're less likely to dwell on their flaws or mistakes. This doesn't mean you ignore harmful behavior, but it does mean you approach conflicts with a mindset of understanding rather than blame. Gratitude fosters connection, reminding you that even when people make mistakes, they are still worthy of kindness and compassion. As you integrate these practices, mindfulness, letting go, radical acceptance, and gratitude, you create an emotional foundation that is unshakable. Life will continue to present challenges, but they will no longer have the power to control you. You'll navigate them with grace, wisdom, and a sense of inner peace that cannot be taken away. Through daily practice, you'll transform from someone who reacts to life's ups and downs into someone who responds with clarity and purpose. And in that transformation, you'll find the freedom to live authentically, without the burden of being controlled by your emotions. As you deepen your journey toward emotional mastery, you'll begin to understand that emotions are neither good nor bad. They simply are. What gives them power is the meaning you attach to them and the stories you tell yourself about them. When you recognize that emotions are fleeting, that they come and go like waves on the ocean, you stop clinging to them. You allow them to rise, you observe them, and you let them fall away naturally. This practice prevents you from being swept away by emotional currents and brings a sense of balance to your internal world. One of the most important lessons in this process is learning to detach from the stories your mind creates. For example, when you feel rejected, your mind might spin a narrative about why you're not good enough or why you'll never be successful. These stories fuel the emotion, making it stronger and more overwhelming. But when you become aware of the stories and question their validity, you weaken their grip on you. Instead of blindly believing every thought that crosses your mind, you approach your thoughts with skepticism, asking, "Is this really true? Or is this just a story my mind is telling me?" Consider the example of failure. When you experience a setback, your initial reaction might be to think, "I'm a failure. I'll never succeed." But when you pause and question that thought, you realize that it's just a temporary interpretation of the situation, not an absolute truth. Failure isn't who you are. It's an event, and like all events, it's temporary and subject to change. By detaching from the story, you create space for a more empowering perspective, such as, "This setback is a learning opportunity. What can I do differently next time?" This ability to rewrite the narrative is a form of emotional alchemy. It transforms heavy, negative emotions into lighter, constructive ones. Instead of being trapped in a cycle of self-doubt or frustration, you use the experience as fuel for growth. You learn to reframe challenges as opportunities and setbacks as lessons. The mind, when trained in this way, becomes a powerful ally rather than a source of inner conflict. It becomes a tool you can use to navigate life with resilience and purpose. Another key aspect of emotional mastery is understanding the power of acceptance. Many people think that acceptance means surrendering or giving up, but in reality, acceptance is one of the most powerful forms of control you can have. When you accept a situation, you stop resisting reality and start working with it. Resistance creates tension, stress, and frustration because you're fighting against what is. But when you accept things as they are, you free yourself from that struggle and gain the clarity to take meaningful action. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of everything that happens. It means you acknowledge reality without trying to change what's beyond your control. Imagine you've made a mistake at work, and instead of beating yourself up or wishing you could go back in time, you accept what happened and focus on the next step. You ask yourself, what can I do now to fix this or prevent it from happening again? This shift from resistance to acceptance allows you to respond proactively rather than being paralyzed by regret or self-criticism. Radical acceptance also applies to your emotions. When you feel sadness, fear, or anger, instead of suppressing or denying them, you allow yourself to experience them fully. You say, "I feel this, and that's okay." By doing so, you remove the additional layer of suffering that comes from resisting your emotions. You let the feelings move through you naturally, like a wave that rises, peaks, and then recedes. This practice not only reduces the intensity of the emotion, but also shortens its duration. In moments of emotional turbulence, one of the most grounding practices you can turn to is deep breathing. The breath is a bridge between the mind and body, and when you consciously control it, you calm your nervous system and bring yourself back to the present moment.